Hi, I'm back. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the upcoming album, The Bridge. First, it's not really an album. I use the word a lot, especially when I first revealed it, since I wanted the concept to be a secret, but in reality, this is a long form song with a runtime of about 53 minutes. I started writing this over 2 years ago, right around the time I was recording The Pathway in the fall of 2017. The title of the album comes from my last name, Leung, which translates to bridge. Obviously, this is going to be an incredibly personal work, and the story is essentially about my father's life, the relationship between father and son, and the meaning of one's name. I actually explored this concept once before in the song Trilogy from the non-Apathy album Serpent. That was one of the easiest and most natural songs I ever wrote, so I wanted to revisit the theme in more detail. I want to start with the art right here, which I designed myself. It consists of my last name drawn from my bleeding fingertip on canvas paper. I did this about a year ago. It has since become very oxidized and brown, but I can make the point at least that I literally bled for this, in addition to the sweat and tears that I've shed over the past 2 years working on this song. So why exactly has it taken so long? What have I been doing this whole time with my life? As it turns out, long-form music is really hard to write, and my particular approach to composing the song forced it to become an exponentially difficult task. My longest track before this was Layer from the album Return, which is 16 minutes, so I've dabbled in the format before, and initially the bridge was supposed to be 3 songs, about 20 minutes each, but after a while it just made more sense to do it as one single track. So what exactly makes this more difficult? Why is one 50-minute song harder to write than 5 10-minute songs? There are 2 strategies that bands can employ to write long-form songs. You can utilize repetition to stretch out the song, which works for the stoner and drone style. The standard for this is of course Dope Smoker, and while Sleep is the pioneer and really laid the groundwork for long-form music and heavy metal, it's not my style of choice. I've listened to it a couple of times. I think the main riff is about a minute long, and it repeats 8 times before the first verse starts, and my black metal infested mind just needs a little bit more action than that. The other strategy is to stitch together a bunch of independent ideas that don't exactly stand alone to create one long-form track that does work together. This is more of the progressive style, but it's easy to go too far and end up with a Frankenstein piece that's kind of cheated together, in my opinion, to hit a long runtime that's not truly one cohesive song. Meaning that if you skip through the song in 5-minute increments, you might not even realize that you're listening to what's supposed to be one single track. In fact, if you look at my album releases, and you might see that I did something very similar for The Pathway, where I released 2 versions, a single 45-minute track and one called Isolation, which is 6 separate songs. For the record, The Pathway is not a long-form track. It was never intended to be considered one, and the Isolation version is the true album. It has an intro, 4 songs, and an outro. But the tracks do fade in and out, and there are sampled pieces that connect one track to the other. So in the interest of providing an immersive listening experience, I released the continuous version so that you can download it and listen to the whole album without having cuts in between the tracks. So with these 2 strategies in mind, my goal for writing The Bridge was to create a long-form song that used neither of the 2 methods. Straight repetition has never been my writing style, and part of my process is to take a riff and explore the many different ways you can manipulate how it sounds by changing drum rhythms and bass harmonies. At the most extreme, I make a direct effort to never even repeat lyrics in a chorus, so even when I'm using an ABAB songwriting format, I always change the words during the B sections. It's a built-in necessity for my music to constantly change, or else I'll feel lazy and complacent, which inherently leans towards method 2. So I want my songs to build up and evolve over time, but I don't want it to deviate too much from the central theme. I found out the best way to ensure that was to write the song chronologically, meaning that I don't write section B until I'm done with section A. And when I do work on section B, I need to listen to section A every single time before I start writing. Which means by the time I'm on section E, I have to listen to A, B, C, and D just to make sure that everything runs together coherently. Hence why it's exponentially harder, because every new note that I write needs to consider all the other notes that were previously written, and eventually you just reach a critical mass where there's so much music proceeding that it just takes a long time to even get to writing a new idea in the first place. Here's the good part. I think I succeeded. Over the course of 53 minutes, the bridge goes through 7 different sections, different tempos and time signatures each, around 50 unique riffs depending on how you count it, 6 guitar solos, tons of melodies, bass melodies, even 1 bass solo. But musically, each section is connected by the same themes and motifs, each solo linked by the solo preceding it. And here's how I've kind of created something that I might be able to consider my masterpiece. When I came up with the idea for the album Origins, I didn't start writing until I finished Rebirth, which came out in March 2015. Origins was released 3 months later. When I was mixing that album, I got so sick of listening to it over and over again that I gave up on producing it and actually released it before I truly considered it complete. It remains to this date my greatest disappointment, and I only worked on it for 3 months total. Now consider this, I've been writing the song for 2 years. Every time I worked on the song, I listened to the previously written sections. I started recording 6 months ago in May. I recorded all the rhythm guitars while I continued to work on solos and the bass. Over these 6 months of recording, writing, and producing, I've listened to the song every single day of my life, multiple times a day. It's really the only music I've paid any attention to. There are so many great albums, Alcest, Mayhem, Immortal, that I've barely checked out just so I can get this finished. My entire year of 2019 really has revolved around this one thing, the bridge. At the beginning, I really enjoyed listening to this develop, seeing all the pieces come together. During recording, I was so excited to finally be able to hear the song with actual instrumentation. And even now that I'm done recording and just mixing, I know that every time I play the song, it's getting closer and closer to converging towards its final destination. And I still haven't grown tired, even though I've probably played it 1,000 times in the past 3 months, and as many, if not more times in my head thinking about it when I go about all the other parts of my life. This is by far the best thing that I've ever done. So where am I now with the progress? The mixing is almost done. Everything has been EQ'd properly, and I'm just gradually tuning the levels until I get a complete balance. Then a bit of mastering, and then I'm done. Unfortunately, I can't give an exact release date, even though I'm probably very close to finished. If this is considered to be my life work after all, then I can't say it's going to be done until it's done. But I'm talking within 2 weeks from the release of this video, so very soon, and definitely before the end of the year. Fortunately, enough of it is ready that I can provide some samples, and today I'm going to give you a rough cut of the first 3 minutes. As always, my music's grounded in black metal, but with strong influences from my favorite bands outside of the genre, especially Iron Maiden and Led Zeppelin. In recent times, my favorite artists have been Neurosis and Townes Van Zandt, and before I got heavily invested in working on the bridge, I almost exclusively listened to just these 2 artists, so expect a lot of it to leak into my songwriting. So with all that, I want to thank you for your patience. I'm very excited for what's coming. I hope you're excited and that you enjoyed listening to this as much as I do.